What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, super producer Brandon Newman, Isaiah out in Vegas. My dad, Mike Golick Sr., not going to be with us here this morning. Got some travel issues. We are heading out to New York, which means I am not physically in the presence of inside this hotel room, but physically in the same city as our good friend back for the first time in a while on a Wednesday, Charlotte Wilder. How we doing, bud?
Oh my God, I'm so good, Mike. I've missed you guys so much. This is a genuine smile. I know you were. I was like, wait, you're in New York? Because I was in the Metalurk office, and the Thomas, shout out Thomas, you're gonna hang out with Thomas. One of our producers was like, oh yeah, they're doing a show with Stu today, or tomorrow, because this was yesterday, and I was like, wait, Mike, are you here? And you were like, yes, and I was like, cool. There's no way that we can both timing wise be in the same place, but we'll do it from the same city, and maybe I'll come find you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I've noticed being back out here, because it's been a while since I've been to New York City, that New York and LA have a lot of the same flavors to their issues. Like, everybody in certain forms is packed in more tightly than they want to be in certain areas. There's a city's feel in certain spots. Everything's separated by neighborhoods. A lot of times it feels like it can be hard to get from one to the other for things that you might need. So I feel like it's one of those things where, as is often the case, even cities that people like to put together as opposites have a little more in common than either side wants to admit.
Yeah, I think, we have a show, Oddball. There's a new family member
Hell yeah,
of
you
the
do.
DraftKings Network, if you can believe. Oh, wow. Thank you for using a very old picture of me with our logo. I love it so much. And finger guns, that's always good. And so we record that at 9 Eastern, and this is 10 Eastern, and I was like, can I sprint to the seaport from Brooklyn? But I didn't think that was going to be feasible. So here we are.
Well, here we are indeed. And Charlotte, you mentioned it for everyone that's come to know Charlotte around this show, and we have a great one for you as always. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us the 5-star rating. Check us out on DraftKings YouTube channel and DraftKingsNetwork.com. Plenty to get into. Everybody in the NFL is getting money right now except for running backs. There's plenty of money in the NBA getting doled out here. Jim Harbaugh might be suspended for one of the sillier reasons that we've seen, especially in light of recent events in college football. But Charlotte, the last time, it's obviously been a while since we've talked to you, you were heading out to Vegas to cover Summer League with Amin Elhassan, your co-host on Oddball, which everybody should go and check out here. So how has it been? What should people expect? Please tell the GoJo audience about what they need to know about your guys' new podcast as part of our family.
I think you should know that it is the weirdest basketball show you've probably ever seen. And I say that, like, in Mean Girls, when she's like, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. Like, we're not a regular show, but it like actually is weird. Like, I watch it sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, this is wacky, which I personally love. Summer League was great. We interviewed a lot of very cool players, former players, coaches. We talked to T-Mac. We talked to Jason Richardson. We talked to Sean Marion, Anthony Black, David Griffin. It was just like a very I had never been to Summer League before, and it was a really a warm environment. Like, I mean, literally Vegas is 1,000 degrees, but it was also, there was a very nice feeling around the whole thing, because I think it's more of a laid back, less cutthroat moment for the league when everyone's there, and for second year, third year players who really need this as a chance to prove themselves. Obviously it's very intense, but for people who don't have to be actively playing or coaching, they can sort of relax a little bit. So that was great. Amin and I have been having a lot of fun, and I think it's been exciting to do something every day and build these rhythms, and hopefully give people some entertainment and basketball knowledge along the way.
Have you gotten to introduce Amin to your love for large mobile travel vessels or buildings yet?
Oh man, have I? I don't think so, Mike. Maybe we'll do that on actually, yes. Well, sort of, because I went to the Vegas Sphere. Have
Oh,
you?
yeah. How was it seeing that in person? Oh, my God. I mean, I'm sure people have seen on social media at this point the giant Vegas sphere. It's taken on the form of an eyeball, a basketball, everything. It seems incredibly distracting and dangerous to drivers. Charlotte, how was the sphere in person?
Dude, the Sphere is sick. The Sphere is one of our producers. When we first saw it, we walked out of the arena and at Thomas and Mack at UNLV, where Summer League is, and it was dusk. And the Sphere, which is this massive, literal sphere with the biggest LED screen I think in the world. And he saw it, and he walks out, and he unironically, just like completely off the cuff, he goes, "Hell yeah." And we were like, and that is the reaction that it's actually just Sphere, but I can't just call it Sphere. And I was obsessed with it, and I went and got as close as physically possible. I stood on the side of the highway on a barricade next to it, and somehow managed to get yelled at by people working for James Dolan, even on the side of a highway. So, but Amin was like, wow, you are really into this giant building. And I should have connected the dots and been like, yeah, you should hear me talk about cargo airplanes, but I didn't, Mike. I'm so sorry.
What? Baby steps. This is a new relationship for you and Amin, something you guys are building, something that everybody should check out there. I can only imagine, as you said, the world's largest LED screen, that somewhere Jerry Jones is now seething that he didn't think of this first and to just put it inside Jerry World at AT&T in Texas. So maybe we've got something to look forward to there. Charlotte, coming off Summer League, though, I feel like what a perfect confluence of events to begin your basketball potting. You obviously got to go do that in person, but now for you, the Celtics fan, too, are you part of the camp that is excited about or a little bit daunted by the Jaylen Brown contract that just got signed?
Oh, man. We just talked about this on Oddball, and I played the role of very excited Celtics fan, being like, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. But I think I'm a little bit trepidatious, maybe. So Jaylen Brown, he got a $304 million deal. Everyone's like, largest deal in NBA history, but that's also sort of obnoxious because I mean, at this point, like it breaks down by percentages and inflation goes up, and so like every deal is going to be, it's like you go to buy eggs and it's like, oh my god, these eggs are more expensive than any egg has ever been before, and it's like, well, right, because like that's how money works, sort of. So I think that's a very good way to trick people and fans into being like, oh my god, he's paid so much money, when it's still a fraction of what the billionaires who own the teams make. I don't know. I think when things are good for the Celtics, when Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are playing well together, and they average close to 60 points a game combined, that's incredible. I think it's obviously a little bit concerning based on how the last Eastern Conference Finals went, and the fact that they haven't been able to get over that hump. And maybe Kristaps Porzingis helps that out. I have a hard time believing that without the, agitator and Grant Williams and the defensive, the guy who's obnoxious, but you love him so much because he's yours, Marcus Smart, and I'm still not over that. Without them, I don't know that I believe this is all still going to work, but I'm going to be hopeful and optimistic. And, I'm glad that they haven't broken the band up yet, because I think that there's at least one more run, and this contract doesn't kick in until 2025, I believe. So, we'll see if Jaylen's even on the team this time next year, but I'm hopeful.
It is amazing how NBA brain works, where I saw multiple people that were already talking about him demanding a trade after next season or some way that this could go poorly. In the process, I saw a million people make the joke about, man, imagine if he could use his left hand. And while I appreciate where that comes from, my whole thought process is this dude's been busting folks' ass with just one hand and got paid $300 million. Why do the rest of y'all suck so bad? If this is about him, why are you letting him do this to you with one hand? Because as you pointed out, like, there are certain stats in the NBA where if you're in the same air as a couple of names, you should probably be kept around. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown scored 30 points each in 10 games at the same time last year. The only other players to do that in the last 30 years are Shaq and Kobe. Like, if you've got a duo that is that potent and has gotten you this close, because Charlotte, I always say in sports, no matter what, yeah, winning championships is certainly a metric, especially in the NBA, but in general, you're paying for proximity to the prize, right? Who can get you the closest to championships, and then do you have the ball bounce your way a couple of times? It's been Eastern Conference final after Eastern Conference final, like you said, for this core.
Yeah, and I think that's totally right. And I think that sports fans and, especially in the NBA, people get so cynical. And there's always, which with good reason, like we should be cynical about everything. Obviously, the world is a mess, but I think that it is crazy. There is some eye test that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum together are not passing for people because, as you said, those numbers have only come from Kobe and Shaq before. So wouldn't you want to at least give it a shot? And Amin said this on our show. He was like, the league is so desperate for talent that someone was going to pay Jaylen this, so he would get this anywhere. He's worth that value. So if the Celtics want to, I don't see how they'd be better off trying for a championship without him. So yeah, let's give it a try.
Exactly. While you are this close, you got to keep hammering away with this group that is yours. That is the homegrown idea that everybody wants to try and shoot for, or at least every fan claims to want around the NBA right now. Charlotte, I can tell you why people are sometimes a little bit perception not equaling reality with Jaylen Brown. It is a factor we talk about a lot on the show. He's got football shoulders. Super producer Brandon Newman made the great point that the Boston Celtics are like the antithesis of the Denver Nuggets team we just saw win the title, where they had the same core there for so long and nobody really paid them any mind. The Denver Nuggets, while they've got some history, don't have nearly the storied history that the Boston Celtics do, or the branding that has them constantly in the conversation with a young core like Tatum and Brown. And so Charlotte, while they were able to get by over there and slow cook this thing without the burden of expectation, you guys have to just stare at all of those banners inside TD Garden every single night and feel that pressure of Larry Bird and all these other people staring down at you, wondering why your great run that any other team in the NBA would take, having two young bona fide studs that they could count on and build around in the middle of their team. But in Boston, you get close enough without winning the whole thing for a while, and everyone's just tapping their watch wondering, when are we going to recycle and do something new here? This is boring.
Yeah, it's like having a family that, all the older siblings were really amazing. And then all of a sudden you come along and don't get into any colleges. I don't know. That was a horrible analogy. But I think that for a lot of Boston fans, there is this feeling of like, you get so close and there is so much weight on the franchise, which is actually hilarious to me because Boston won all those championships in the 1800s. So like maybe it's time to reset a little bit and think about what we're actually talking about. We also had, the greatest player of franchise history in Bill Russell win 11. So it all feels like there's this total Boston brain situation going on. And unless they win a championship, Tatum and Brown will be the worst players who've ever graced the TD Garden.
It's amazing how expectations can muddy the water on certain things because, again, objectively, you look around the league and the way the NBA pays out money. Jaylen Brown, overwhelmingly worth it, but with the pressure in that situation, it's always going to make it. And we spend so much time with these guys. They're so young, but they've been at this level for so long. They arrived like at what everyone felt like early in that Eastern Conference series against LeBron way back when. And ever since then, we've been nitpicking every little thing about them because we see so much of them. Again, overexposure can sometimes be as damaging as expectation. Charlotte, on the total opposite end, it is so much fun with that in mind to watch what's going on with Inter Miami already, with Messi being introduced into that ecosystem. Like watching him pump Atlanta FC to the tune of 2 goals and an assist last night was incredible theater, and everyone seems to be having fun, and life seems to be so good for Messi, who has probably never had soccer feel this easy for him ever. Like, have you taken in some of the scene of that? Because it looks incredible.
Yeah, it's absolutely so the best case scenario of what anyone thought it would be when Messi stepped onto that pitch, if you will, for the first time, because the fact that this man has been so great, but he is now delivering exactly the narrative that Miami fans wanted so badly. Like, he is the savior. He is doing the thing. And, I don't think anyone should be surprised, because this is a man who, you could argue is the greatest of all time, although that's a really fun argument that people love to have, and I don't want to have it. And what he did in the World Cup last year was absolutely, there's some people who can bend space and time as athletes, and even the fact that first goal, he came in and took that penalty kick and literally bent it like Beckham, as Beckham, the owner of the team who got him there, is in the stand. It's like, the tired sports joke of who's writing this, like, who's in the writer's room for this one. And I think my question to you is do you think he can sustain this? Do you think this is realistic to keep going? And can one guy provide that much of a spark that maybe the worst team in the MLS can suddenly get its act together, not just because of him?
It seems like it's possible. Like, I don't want to borrow too much from art, but this seems like the exact Zava storyline from Ted Lasso's season 3, where one player's greatness, and you pointed it out, like gravity. I saw Big Cat and PFT talking about the study I think The Athletic did during the last World Cup, where Messi walks more than any other player on the pitch. He spends the beginning of the match really just throttling down to first gear and walking and taking it all in. And he forces the defense to kind of all bend to his will. And Charlotte, regardless of sport, we see, right, I always borrow this phrase from John Danowski, who's the head lacrosse coach at Duke. He calls the person who initiates offense and draws the defense's eyes the party starter. And in every sport, no matter what it is, no matter what side of the ball, you got to have a party starter, right? You got to have someone that's so good that they can draw the attention of everybody else, because then it makes life so much easier for everybody. And hell, just on reputation alone, Messi's going to step onto an MLS field and be the best player any of these players have ever played with and will ever play with in their entire life. And you hear his own teammates talk about how somewhat nerving it is. Like, they're watching like fans half the time from the bench. And I can kind of understand that. Like, I remember going in the offseason program in New Orleans and sitting across the breakfast table from Drew Brees and feeling like, what am I doing here? I couldn't imagine being one of these guys who's grown up watching this man throttle soccer and throttle this game left and right worldwide, and now being like, oh God, thank God that guy's on my team, let alone what the guys in the other locker rooms around MLS are feeling.
Totally. And I think that's what the very special people in this world can do, whether it's in sports, whether it's in any organization. If you have one person who's so talented, and I think in Messi's case, so practiced, like a lot of what we talk about with the greatest athletes, yes, there is absurd and electrifying individual talent, but it's also the practice they've put in, the amount of work that they've shown they can sustain, and being around that is contagious in its best form. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about sports. I feel like I've said this on this podcast, on this show before. I feel like I say it often, which is environment determines so much more than individual character. But I do think that one individual character can completely change the environment. I mean, we saw it with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, where all of a sudden there's this infusion of energy from this fresh guy, and we're seeing it at Inter Miami now, and it's really cool.
It is really cool. You saw the crowd there. You mentioned the environment. I will say this, and it's going to sound demeaning, but it's not. Miami is the greatest front-running sports town that we have. If there is something truly there to celebrate, they will celebrate it and show out better than any other town can. Charlotte, I woke up and spent most of this morning feeling even worse for running backs than I already did. Like, they've had so much bad press in the last few days, with Saquon Barkley taking the 1-year deal, the saddest Zoom call in the world going on, coming off the weekend where they all saw their market depressing in front of them. They saw all the statistics about no one's making money. And then you see this morning, literally everybody else getting paid. Like in the last 2 days, Andrew Thomas, Giants left tackle, 5-year, $117.5 million extension. Titus Howard, the Texans offensive tackle, 3-year, $56 million. Trevon Diggs in Dallas, 5-year, $97 million extension for a DB. Justin Herbert, the Mac Daddy of them all, 5-year, $262 million extension with up over $200 million guaranteed. Like, Charlotte, this was the ultimate reminder of just how stark the market difference is, because for everybody else, the prices continue to skyrocket in a way that just reminds you what this sport is, an absolute titan right now.
Yeah, I mean, your tweets and Mina Kimes' tweets about this, the running back market, I found really fascinating last week. I feel like, is there anything that the players' union can do to try to fix this situation? Because right now it seems like you need some government regulation in order to make the market fair. Because I personally, take Saquon. He is responsible for 30% of getting the ball up the field. There was some insane statistic where it's like, this guy is the basically only thing consistently working for the Giants. And to me, that should mean that it doesn't matter if he's a running back who statistically is more likely to get hurt. There's more wear and tear. I get it. The market determines how much you get paid. It's not like everyone's sitting there being like, oh, we don't want to pay him, but they're like, why would we pay him more than we have to? Because this is capitalism, and that's really fun for everybody. But I do think that there's got to be some sort of course correction, because to me, it's inhumane not to care that this guy who is doing the bulk of the work is not getting paid just because other running backs aren't getting paid. Like, what are we doing? And like, you got to fix it. You've got to fix it. I think it's absolute garbage.
It's one of those things, Charlotte, where I think we all look up and agree that, and I said this the other day, circumstances slowly over time have changed, and a series of, I think, unrelated actions had unintended consequences that all just negatively impacted this position. Like, you had all these rule changes to protect quarterbacks and wide receivers, all these rule changes to incentivize passing. It's more exciting. It's more analytically efficient. And all of the byproducts of that, of the change in the CBA around rookie contracts that most adversely affect running backs, weren't all done with running backs in mind, but just happened to affect them more than everybody else as the game changed and started to mimic more of what we saw high school and college. So, Charlotte, unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot the PA can do, because, again, they've got a harder job than everybody else, because in their sport, there's more of a risk of injury, there are shorter careers, and you've got 11 different positions on two sides of the ball that only play one way on each and every down. And so when you kind of put all that in a pile together, how is a players association supposed to represent the best interest of each and every one of these people along the way? I think it's just going to have to be an evolution of the game thing, Charlotte, and a couple of good contracts and good cautionary tales, right? I think that's the one thing that's gone undersold about this is, even with Saquon Barkley, a lot of injury built. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's injury built into his sample size so far. There's been injury built into the Todd Gurley contract that went south. A number of these other deals. There's been a lot of rim shots and shots rimming out in the running back market. They need a Bijan Robinson to have a really strong rookie contract where he stays healthy and balls out. They need Jahmyr Gibbs, in Detroit to kind of do the same thing. They need some positive examples of running backs getting paid and it working out for the teams involved.
No, that's a great point. I mean, maybe the running backs should start their own union.Maybe the NFLPA isn't enough and you need like separate position group unions. No, I mean, I totally get it. I think there's something to me that's just such a bummer about the position that is hardest on the body and that takes the most wear and tear just being paid the least, because it's like they're punished for the work they're doing in some way. And I guess that's sports, but I'm happy for the other guys who are getting paid.
Sure. Well, and it's tough, Charlotte, because like I saw I think it was Kyle Brandt from the NFL Network the other day put out that tweet talking about, he said, if you were a 5-star running back coming out of high school heading to Georgia or Ohio State or Alabama, do you try and bulk up and switch positions and become an edge rusher for your NFL future? And obviously, like, I think if Kyle had an edit button on that tweet, he would do a do-over with the position, because there are very few running backs physically capable of being edge rushers. And if they could, they probably would have. Like, it's Derrick Henry, Brandon Jacobs, and maybe like two others. But to the larger point, even about like a position switch in general, if you were going to pick something more manageable, like wide receiver, slot receiver, cornerback, linebacker, something like that, the math problem, because I've seen plenty of people saying, if you're a young kid, why would you want to be a running back? It's because that position is the most physically and skill set accessible probably in football, right? Between 5'8" and 6'2", between $180 and 220 pounds, you can find more of those than guys Andrew Thomas's size, the guys who can run Tyreek Hill fast, the guys can do all those things. And so there aren't as many other options that give you maybe your best chance of getting to the NFL. Like, if you're a young player and you're great at running back and okay at wide receiver or okay at corner, would you rather go risk it for the upside of the already very low odds calculus of getting to the NFL at all versus giving yourself the best chance to get paid at all for this skill set in this particular sport? That's the difficult bit of math that I think we're oversimplifying in the name of running backs who already have it hard enough.
No, I think that's a really, really smart way to put it, because if that's the lowest barrier to entry to being in the league for most people, just because, it involves a little bit less precision skills, perhaps, or physical monstrosity that you can't control about your body, then maybe that is it feels a little bit like, happy to be here instead of paid what I'm owed. But I do think that that's probably factoring in a way. Also, like, someone's got to be a running back. Like, unless the league completely does away with that position, which, I mean, stranger things have happened, I suppose. Like, what if the NFL were to just be like, you know what? Like, there's no run game anymore. This is strictly a passing league. Like, it sounds insane, but I actually don't know that we're too far away from that.
For a while, it felt like that, Charlotte, but we've seen in the last couple of years, right? Like, the one thing about football is, because there are so many moving parts, the game strategy is never going to be static. Like, you're going to have changing body types, changing in what body types are available, and certainly people constantly adjusting. And the one thing we saw in the last couple of years is, with the Shanahan and McVay coaching tree guys making their way throughout the NFL, there is plenty of run game. The New York Giants, like you mentioned, were a team that relied heavily on the run. The Carolina Panthers did last year. The Eagles did last year. The 49ers did. Like, on and on. You saw teams that made creative use, but make no mistake, plenty of volume use of that position and of that phase of the game. So it's just how you get to that point and the way that you employ people. And right now it's, platoons, it's quarterbacks being mobile enough to be involved in your run game. Like, that being a net positive for quarterbacks, that we're not gaping that position just to people that are pocket passer, statue white guys anymore, also has an effect on everybody else. Because if you've got quarterbacks, black or white, that can be useful in the running game, now all of a sudden you've got yet another thing that teams can point to and say, well, you're getting a lot of help from that guy, and we already got to pay him Justin Herbert money, so why are we going to shell that out to you too?
That's so true. Like, if quarterbacks can scramble and they're already getting the bulk of the salary cap, then, like, okay. I just thought of a joke. Who did get rid of the run game preemptively was Kyle Shanahan in the 2017 Super Bowl.
That's a 28-3 joke, folks. Finger pistols for our friend Charlotte.
I am here all day. No, I think you're right though. I think that quarterback payday and players who are versatile and who can do more than one thing is also probably hurting the running back cause. But I mean, good for it. Look, I'm happy about Justin Herbert. I really hope that things. I hope things work out for him. I would love to see that guy win a championship. He is so much fun. Glad he hasn't cut his hair, just all around a guaranteed 200 mil. Shout out to Justin.
It's incredible and like deserving of it. We've talked about that offense a lot. Mina Kimes once likened it to buying a mansion that someone's been murdered in. Like, it seems like bad things happen to the Chargers. And Justin Herbert's been able to go out and produce beyond that. And I think everyone's very excited to see. The number one question, and it's so boring because the analysis every year for the Chargers the same, is if they can all stay healthy, this is one of the best rosters in the NFL. And we anticipate Kellen Moore, their new OC, being able to push the ball downfield more, which is what we all want to see with Justin and an offense that's got as many weapons as they do. But that still remains to be seen. The funny thing that happens with quarterback paydays, though, Charlotte, is we celebrate it for a second, and we all expected Justin Herbert's going to get the payday, and then immediately everyone goes, well, wait till Joe Burrow gets paid now. Or what are the Cowboys going to do with Dak Prescott next? Because he's owed $60 million against the cap next year. And like, we never really sit in it for all that long before we just go, what does it mean for the next guy?
It's so true. But that also feels like that same sort of Jaylen Brown, biggest salary ever conversation, where people, I think, also have a very hard time comprehending just how much money that is. I think that the average American, I think that actually money in sports, the closest thing we have to it in like everyday Americans' lives is money in weddings. I think that weddings it completely change the way that your brain processes amounts of money. Like I've heard people talk that people will be like, oh, well, it's only $7,000 for this additional part of the wedding package. And I'm like, if you told me in my normal life that like something was $7,000, I would be like, you expect me to pay $7,000? Like, when was the last time I paid $7,000 for anything? This is also, I work in media. I'm not like, I'm not a billionaire, but I do think that sort of same, there are these two places that everyday fans go where money is different. And I think it's wedding planning, and I think it's sports, because all of a sudden you have people like me being like, oh, well, $200 million, that's not even as much as Joe Burrow's going to get. And it's like, what are you even talking about? Like, do you have any actual context for how much money this is? And the fact that we automatically, fans will go to the next guy as if they have any comprehension of what that's like is sort of all of a sudden everybody's a businessman.
Well, it also fits too, because in both cases, comparison is the ultimate thief of joy. And that's exactly what happens here too, right? You see another really nice wedding on Instagram with some stuff you wish you had done, or in the lead up to your wedding. God forbid you go to another wedding and you see something you really like and you start adding. I had a run of my buddies' weddings, in like our mid-20s, and everyone would see what someone did at one wedding when it came to the time where we went to take pictures, or what you do for the entrance of the bridal party, or table settings, and they would add to theirs. And that's exactly what happens, especially in these quarterback markets. Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network tweeted, in 2013, Aaron Rodgers was the NFL's highest paid player at $22 million a year. Just 10 years later, there are 18 quarterbacks making over $22 million. There are 12 making over $40 million. And after Justin Herbert's extension, there are now 4 making $50+ million a year. The cap has grown 82.7% in the last decade, and the quarterback money has somehow even surpassed that. So it's what happens, because this Justin Herbert deal is like, I think $2.5 million more than the Lamar Jackson deal. That was about $5 million total dollars more than the Jalen Hurts deal. Like, round and round we go. They just keep stacking it up and adding it up a little bit more. We're to the point where I think Patrick Mahomes, in terms of average annual value, is like the 8th highest paid quarterback in the NFL right now, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and when he signed that deal, what was that, 2019? Or I don't remember, like the five, so, and then yeah. I remember the $500 million figure being thrown around, and I remember thinking like, holy cannoli, that is a lot of money. And now it's not even, the best quarterback in the league isn't even paid what Jalen Hurts is paid, who has been extremely promising but hasn't done what Mahomes has done. But I do think that guys like Mahomes, I mean, obviously going back to Tom Brady, it very much, it became clear pretty quick that having a great quarterback is your best chance of winning the Super Bowl. And that is such an obvious statement that it's almost like, how can you even say that at this point? But that does, I think, dictate the market, where when you see a Patrick Mahomes doing things with his eyes closed behind his back, upside down and backwards, you're like, oh, okay, well, you have to pay for that unbelievable skill set. And that is the best chance that these teams have of winning all the marbles. So yeah, I get it. It's like, of course the cap's going to grow like that if that's what it takes to win.
100%. And like we talked about, this is the other side of all the rule changes that affected running backs, is it's made quarterback as valuable or more valuable than ever. And it'll be interesting to watch the way people talk about Mahomes and all of this, because there is this idea that every player, especially at the top of the market, has an obligation to the other players to go and seek the biggest and best deal. And that Mahomes deal, even at the time, was looked at as super team friendly. And I saw Mike Florio over at Pro Football Talk take this shot. If Patrick Mahomes is fine with helping to further feather Clark Hunt's billion-dollar nest, so be it. But Mahomes is currently $7.5 million per year behind the top of the market at quarterback position, and it'll only get worse when Joe Burrow signs his deal, ignoring the fact that that's how the quarterback market works. Each subsequent one is going to be more than the last, and you can only demand so much. But even if it is team friendly, like, everybody seemed to love up on Tom Brady for taking less and allowing the team to go do more, even though the Patriots consistently didn't do all that much with it. Like, the Chiefs have no cap space right now. They spend money. Yes, in cash, Clark Hunt is being able to pocket a little bit more, but like, man, it'll just be interesting to see the tone people take as the Chiefs become the dominant force, because as likable as Mahomes is, and as much as some people enjoyed quarterback, Charlotte, you can already feel the scale sort of tilting with Mahomes, because he is someone who's excitable, someone who's a ton of fun at that position. He's got an edge about him that is rare at any position, and especially quarterback. And as he continues to succeed, people are going to get that version of Steph Curry sick of him talking his stuff, even as nice as he seems to be on the surface.
I mean, the whole commending an athlete for taking less money for the good of the team is so, I don't know. I at the time, I definitely did that too. I was like, wow, look how much this player loves this team, that he's willing to sacrifice what is rightfully his for the good of the team. And he's already a millionaire and blah, blah, blah. And looking back, I'm like, what a weird thing to get excited about. It's like when, it's sort of like the purity of the college football game of not wanting college football players to be paid. It's this idea that, if fans love sports so much, then the people who play them are so lucky and must also love them so much that they will donate their time to, and somehow that makes it more pure or more enjoyable or virtuistic, or it's just like, it's such a weird thing, the way that fans connect to money or athletes foregoing money as some sort of sacrifice for the greater good of sports fandom in America.
Well, it's because fans are married to laundry and to the logo. And so when it seems like a player is married to that in the same way, it feeds the part of them that needs to believe these guys love my thing as much as I love my thing. And they're not just here for the money. They're here because our thing is special. Like, I don't have a problem with the idea necessarily, because I still think Mahomes helped the quarterback market a ton. That deal, like you said, was eye-popping. It has helped advance the quarterback position in certain ways. And so I don't want to make it sound like he's completely undercutting the market, because as we talked about, the quarterback market is fine. But if there is a quarterback that works with the team a little bit, or a player that works with the team a little bit, because they understand, hey, my life can be pretty good if we're stacking championships and all the off the field money I'm making, that's cool, as long as, like what you described, Charlotte, doesn't happen. It's not used as some bit of virtue signaling to then demean other players who understandably look at their station in the NFL or whatever their sport is and say, hey, I'm here for a good time and not a long time. My body's got one chance to make me life-changing sums of money in most cases, and I am going to get every last cent that is owed to me. That player is not a bad guy, much the same way that Patrick Mahomes, who is creative in the way that he got isn't a bad guy either right now. History is going to continue to be kind, as is the bank. Like, I have a feeling we're not that far away from a Mahomes restructure. He's stated as such, but don't make him out to be the bad guy here either. All right, let's get ready to finish this thing off the way we always do, with this, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you on out into the day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Tell us more what you want to see and hear around here. And certainly, while you're there, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review Oddball with our dear friend Charlotte and Amin Elhassan, doing great work over there. We also want to make sure you guys know about our good friends at Knockaround and how they're trying to get you right for the rest of the summer here. All right. I thought it was August. It's not. It's July. So it's still really summer. And when the summer's in full swing, you need good sunglasses. I'm in New York and it's hot as hell. The sun is beating this place down. So you don't want to have to worry about having to baby your sunglasses in the process. That's where Knockaround, the go-to for quality polarized shades that won't break the bank, comes into play. They got their MLB collection, the first 9 teams they just released. The Red Sox, the Yankees, the Mariners, the Dodgers, all those great teams, plus the U.S. women's soccer team sunglasses. So as you roll up to the match day today, and we got the U.S. women taking on the Netherlands today, you can look good and feel good. So don't be the person squinting into the sun, worried about getting sand in their overpriced shades. Check out knockaround.com. Great polarized shades starting at just $28 hairs. Charlotte, let's get to this, that, and the third. And start off with this one. So we waited a couple of days to get to this, and I think you're the right person to help us try and sort through it. The Vikings' Jordan Addison was cited for driving at 140 miles an hour last week and claimed it was because his dog was having an emergency at home, according to a citation filed Monday with the Ramsey County District Court and reviewed by ESPN. The updated citation included misdemeanor charges for speeding and reckless driving, and a description of the incident issued by Minnesota State Patrol notes that Addison, quote, stated his dog was having an emergency at his residence and that was the reason for his speed. Charlotte, are you buying this?
I can't tell if it's one of those things where it's like, if you say your dog ate your homework and it's true, are you like, no one's going to believe you? Like, is this the equivalent of my dog ate my homework, so I have to speed? I don't know. I mean, it's a brilliant thing off the top of his head. Either way, if it's true, I respect it. If it's not true, I also respect the excuse, because that is probably what I would say. If I were speeding and somebody pulled me over and I had no good reason, or it was a bad reason, I would be like, my dog is sick. It's like, I told this story in Le Batard show. I got out of a bad date by saying my dishwasher was broken. It's like so bad that you might believe it. So I don't know, Mike. I actually can't rule on this one because I'm so conflicted about it.
It is tough because obviously we don't want to discount the severity of speeding. We've seen that with the Georgia football team in college and all of those incidents surrounding that team. And so very serious, 140 miles an hour in a Lamborghini Uru. That car is so rich and nice, I don't even know how to pronounce that name right. But the thought of also how scared that dog had to be going 140 miles an hour in the passenger seat had to be wild if true. You are right, though, that the dog PR can soften pretty much any blow. That's the one thing we've learned from years of Super Bowl ads is if you want to get people on your side, just get a dog in the frame and things are going to look and feel pretty good. Charlotte, let's get to that. This is something that is the height of absurdity in college football and in sports in general. You talked about how college football and weddings skew people's views of money. That also happens on the bottom end because Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh is facing a 4-game suspension for essentially lying to the NCAA. For anyone that doesn't remember, back in the day, Jim Harbaugh and Michigan were investigated for some level 2 violations by the NCAA for improper contact with recruits during what was supposed to be a COVID-19 dead recruiting period. Essentially, 2 Michigan commits made an impromptu visit to campus in 21. Coaches at that time weren't supposed to have any contact with players under the COVID rules, but Jim Harbaugh took them to the Brown Jug for burgers. The NCAA found out about it. They asked Jim Harbaugh, hey, do you remember taking these guys there for burgers? Jim Harbaugh's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember taking them there for burgers. And the NCAA is like, we have receipts. And now he has been apparently going to be punished for providing false information to an NCAA investigation, which, Charlotte, all is ridiculous because it boils down to burgers in college football at a time where we are watching Northwestern actively on fire with everything that is going on in that program. We have seen and heard plenty of very serious things going on. And so the notion that Jim Harbaugh is going to miss the first 4 games of Michigan's schedule, which include games against world beaters like UNLV, Bowling Green, and their lone Big Ten game, all of which are at home, by the way, against Rutgers, seems to be completely absurd and something where I'm actually kind of on Jim Harbaugh's side here because of how ridiculous this is.
Well, it's just the NCAA taking itself so freaking seriously and being like, you lied to us. That's a level 1 violation. How dare you? We are the sacred entity. And Jim Harbaugh's like, I'm sorry. I got these guys burgers. And he, you know what? He probably didn't remember it. I'm going to be like, Jim Harbaugh might not even have been lying to you. He might not have remembered. Of all the coaches in college football to not remember getting burgers with guys, I'm like, Jim Harbaugh, 1000%. So,
I mean,
it's another
between being a
example
player
of,
and a coach, do you think about how many times he's had to have been to the Brown Jug and gotten burgers there?
Yes. I mean, so I don't know. It's so sanctimonious of the NCAA to talk about it so seriously. It's like I was almost suspended 2 weeks at prep school because I went off campus to get a chicken Caesar salad wrap. Like, come on, like let's get serious here.
It is a brilliant self-own by the NCAA as they've got all this stuff going on in court and bills they're trying to get passed in the name of NIL, that you've got this where, oh, we're really going to show him we've got teeth and suspend him for the easiest quarter of Michigan season so that he's back in time and well rested to actually get into Big Ten play with a team that's likely capable of winning the Big Ten again and getting back to the college football playoff. We showed him people are definitely going to cooperate with us now.
And I guarantee you that they're going to be like, no, but we did suspend him for a Big Ten game. And everyone's like, it was Rutgers. It was Rutgers.
Like, come on. Yeah.
They're not
Greg
even really
Schiano's going to rush
10.
them in the kneel down. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's I'm still waiting. The Rutgers-UCLA rivalry is going to be the most useful Rutgers is for the jokes that can come of that just based on the mileage in between those two schools. Charlotte, let's get to the third. One of my favorite things in life is fantasizing about what I would do if I won Powerball. When I was with the Saints in the offseason program, Powerball got up near $1 billion, and I would go buy a ticket every Wednesday. I would walk confidently in the facility, and I would say, guys, this is the last day you're ever going to see me after I drive to the Louisiana State Lottery office and collect this. I was promptly cut in June in an elevator holding a Subway sandwich, so maybe I spoke that into existence in the wrong way. But Charlotte, a woman in California is apparently accused of lying about winning the Powerball jackpot. Would have been the third largest ever won. Video showed her crying with joy at an LA store with the winning ticket. But the granddaughter of the store owner told the dailymail.com that the winner had not actually come forward for the $1.08 billion. Charlotte, we live in an era where there's a lot of weird viral trends and things people do for clicks. This seems like kind of the lamest one because you're really just making fun of yourself because at the end of the day, you don't have $1 billion.
Well, I don't first of all, I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Like, I didn't know we could do that. Like, is there a way to pretend you won when you didn't? I don't even know how she would be like, I have the winning ticket when she clearly doesn't have the numbers. I think it's a valiant effort. But I'm almost like that would be like me saying I'm Joe Burrow. Like there's a way to prove that I'm not, right? Like I just don't
That is true.
I don't fully understand, although I respect it, and now maybe I'm going to try it. Who's to say?
The person who's the most pissed in all this, because at least if you're her, well, I don't actually have the winning ticket. I'm just doing this to get on TV, which lottery winner number one, I'm not telling anybody. My own family might not even know if I win the lottery. I'm going ghost. But second, the store owners get a cut when they win, and the store owner was set to receive $1 million. If I'm that dude, I am furious at this tomfoolery. Yes. And I am probably like Batman level vigilante justice going to be the outcome of this whole thing. No dishonest Powerball winners here, but if you enjoyed the experience anyway, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel. Also, check out the Wilder Things .substack, and of course, the new podcast with Amin Elhassan, daily in your inbox. Oddball as a part of DraftKings and Meadowlark Media. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. GoJo. Boom. Money in the bank.